Hi, this is Clay, and I have translated section 4.33 of De Bello Gallico by Caesar, in which he talks extensively about charioteers. And to go with that theme, I found a fun little picture of a horse driving a charioteer, which is funny because usually the charioteer drives the horse. So, um, he starts out sort of setting up his sort of talking about the chariots. He says, "This is the kind of fighting with chariots." An X doesn't really mean with usually or really ever, but it doesn't really make sense in English unless you make it with. So at first, they ride around the horsemen, the charioteers. They ride around through all the parts, like all the areas of the battlefield, and they throw the spears at the enemy, and the rows, like the rows of soldiers, the rows of like the enemy, um, are generally thrown into confusion by their fear of the horses and the sound of the wheels. So pretty much the chariots are some crazy scary thing that scares all the enemy. And then the next little section is a little weird because it's a cum clause with an indicative, which obviously doesn't make a lot of sense, but because it's really the only way to translate it, and the rest of the section, the phrase doesn't really make sense if it's the cum isn't when. So you just have to make it a cum clause. And yeah. So when they penetrate like into the squadrons of horsemen, and this is like a fancy term for squadron, and it has to like really only do with cavalry, only have to do with like horsemen. And this is by the way, this is talking about the enemy. Um anyway, they this is like a fancy term. It means like a squadron of like 30 horsemen. So if you ever think that's a really fun fact. But so they penetrate into the squadrons of horsemen. Um, so when they penetrate into the squadrons of horsemen, they get down from their chariots and they attack on foot. And this is a deponent verb. And the charioteers, meanwhile, gradually like go away from the battle and assemble their chariots. So, in order to, if they are overwhelmed by a great multitude, a great crowd of the enemy, they have a swift retreat to their allies, pretty much, like to them. So, to their allies. Yeah. So the so they stand, or they like show off in battle like the speed of the horsemen, the stability of foot soldiers. So it's saying that they're better than both of them, and this is an example of a syndeton where there's like a lack of a connecting word between these two. Like, so it's not the swiftness of horsemen and it's sort of just to show off like abruptness, just to show off how great they are, pretty much. Because chariots are like a powerhouse in battle. Um, and um, and only by daily use and training they accomplish. And then this uchi kind of makes more sense at the very end because we're about to have this ridiculously long indirect statement clause, indirect statement thing. So I crossed it out, and you'll see it again at the very end. But they are able to accomplish that sort of indirect statement starting, that they sustain urged on, or that pretty much means galloping, horses in declining, or like declining and steep places. And this is and both and then this is a pretty blatant use of anaphora, and so it starts off with both they quickly like maintain, or like quickly control their horses and turn, and they run over or run through the poles of wagons or chariots, and they place themselves in the yoke, and then they the most quickly take themselves back into the chariot. And this is like, and it's like he finishes it saying that they will be accustomed to doing this. So that sounds a little bit weird throwing it at the very end, but if I say they accomplish all these things, that they will be accustomed to do, this, to make this. So it's pretty much saying that if they can do all this, they because of constant use and training. So he's pretty much just talking about how great the chariots are. And that's it for my screencast. And thanks for listening. And I'm sorry, I'm a little tired. But have fun.